Meteorologist Herb Stevens here, the skiing weatherman for SnoCountry.com with your pattern overview for the eastern half of the country for the next couple of weeks for skiers and riders. It's brought to you by UVEX Sports, and the headlines read this way. Are there any changes in this pattern? I think most people would agree that we hope that there aren't any changes, but in the central and southern Appalachians, they've been a little bit on the outside looking in terms of significant snowfall. They've had some light snowfalls in the last few weeks. They'd like a nice big-time storm, big-ticket item. And is that in the cards? Well, I think there are some signs that it just might be. Right now, it's quiet, especially over the western half of the country. We got some winter weather advisories here in the mountains of West Virginia into southwest PA by Hidden Valley, Seven Springs on down to Canaan Valley, Timberline, and Snowshoe, as we have some light upslope flow hitting the mountains there and cranking out several inches of snow to help soften things up there. On this close-up, you can see where the area is. It's under the winter weather advisories, but here are a couple of shades of blue and gray we don't really particularly care for. And these have to do with wind chill advisories. Now, skiers and riders know better than anyone how to prepare for it, but it is true. It is going to be cold this weekend as we get a direct discharge of Arctic air into the region. You'll need an extra layer of clothing. You'll need some covering for your face, but the snow should be terrific, and if you take those precautions, you'll be just fine. Today's jet stream shows a sharp upper-level trough pivoting through the northeast. It is not forming a major storm on the landmass or close to it. There's a low-pressure system that's developing offshore. There's been some light snow in the northeast. Southern New England's had some light snow from time to time today, but this one is going to be a fish storm as it heads for the Maritimes. But we go ahead to Saturday, and here comes another shortwave trough spinning southeastward, a very intense system. This one will have a low-pressure system at the surface with it. Saturday morning, it should be somewhere over here between Holiday Valley and Peak in western New York. And into the afternoon, the snow will spread eastward through upstate New York and eastern Pennsylvania and into portions of New England, most of New England with the exceptions of far northern New England. And it looks as though this is going to become a fairly intense storm as well as it starts to get its act together just to the east of New Jersey. By Sunday morning, it'll be moving in this general fashion, and it looks as though there's going to be a lot of wind-driven snow. It's going to be light, fluffy snow because of the cold temperatures, high ratios, and a powdery snow on the order of, say, 3 to 6 inches in the Catskills and maybe 6 to 12 in the mountains of southern New Hampshire, southern Vermont, and on into southern New England. But again, there'll be a good amount of wind with this. And behind that storm, and this is Sunday night, as the storm moves into the Gulf of Maine, there'll be a press of very cold air going not only through New England and New York, but all the way down toward Wintergreen and Massanutten and Sugar and Beach in North Carolina. So skiers and riders all up and down the eastern seaboard are going to have to take precautions later in the weekend as this Arctic air comes moving in out of Canada. Then we set our sights on the next one. It looks as though the southern stream of the jet stream is going to contribute some energy and perhaps hook up with a northern stream impulse in the middle of the week. Low pressure out of the deep south will start heading in this general direction toward the mouth of Chesapeake Bay. That's a pretty good track for snow if you want snow in the mountains of North Carolina, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and on into New York and New England. And I think we've got a fairly substantial storm that's going to be impacting those areas in the middle of next week as the low moves east of Delaware Bay, and then by Wednesday night is in the vicinity of Eastport, Maine, after laying down a pretty solid snowfall, not only in the Northeast, but again, down the Appalachian chain as far as North Carolina. Now, I don't want to forget our friends here in the upper Midwest. You're going to get your action in week 2 and week 3 because the upper level trough, as I'll show you in a moment, is going to start migrating westward, and I think that's going to result in more snow in the upper Midwest. For now, you've got to satisfy yourself with lake effect as the cold air comes in, and you'll have some lake effect episodes through this weekend and into next week to keep the surfaces soft. Here's the 7-day snowfall according to the U.S. model. The heaviest snow close to the moisture source here in the Northeast. The lows will be developing and being there, spending time at their strongest intensity as they go by Cape Cod. That's why the heaviest snow is here. But there's snow to be had down the Appalachians all the way into the mountains of North Georgia. That is a deviation from what we've seen in the last several weeks, and that is great news from the Poconos down to the Smoky Mountains. The Canadian forecast for the same time period, 7 days, has basically the same breakdown with some heavy snow here in the southern Appalachians Appalachians, Central Appalachians, and then it gets re-enhanced once you get into New England. And this snowy period that the Northeast has had for the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks actually, is going to continue for the foreseeable future. They're just going to share the wealth with some of the ski areas in the Central and Southern Appalachians. 7 days from now, the jet stream is going to look like this, according to the Canadian ensembles. Deep trough over Hudson Bay, lots of cold air circulating into the eastern half of the country, actually right up against the eastern slope of the Rockies, and that's going to start to change the regime out in the west where it's been so warm for so long. Notice the southern branch of the jet is breaking through as the ridge will be up here in Canada in the Pacific Northwest, and this will help with the possibility of other storms to run the coast in the next 2 to 3 weeks. 10 days from now, the axis of the trough will be further west, and that could bring more substantial snow to the upper Midwest. Notice the ridge is still here, and that couplet of the western ridge, eastern trough is good for skiing and riding from the Mississippi River all the way to the eastern seaboard. And 15 days from now, it pretty much looks the same. If anything, the trough will have spread out, and that cold air is going to make it to the west, and I think the prospects for finally getting some new snow in the west will be enhanced late this month, and especially in the month of March if you have a trip in that direction planned before the end of the season. So in summary, the Northeast will remain snowy, but they're going to share the wealth, as I say, as the snow and cold start to spread out. The southern branch is going to kick in. That's good news. It's going to be cold this weekend. Do take care. Put on the extra layer. And watch your friends for those little white spots on their noses and their cheeks and their ears. And the pattern overall for skiers and riders in the eastern half of the country looks terrific right into March. Once again, this has been brought to you by UVEX Sports. Check out their website at uvex-sports.com. Enjoy your sliding this week. Be safe, and I'll have another report for you next Wednesday. Take care.